In the aftermath of the striking Venom attack, the humans have emerged victorious and the robots, at least for a little while, are defeated. But the victory has come at a cost. Many of the battle machines and even the human stronghold Sentai Fortress lay in ruins. Sensei Kaken, leader of the Exo-Force, knows that the team needs to change their strategy if they really want to defeat the robots once and for all. He knows of legends of an ancient golden city that is rumored to possess powers that the current Exo-Force team can only dream of. Ancient technology far superior to the tech that they're using in their battle machines now. So Sensei Kaken sends 3 Exo-Force pilots to find this legendary golden city. And if you're like me, you're probably thinking, okay, a golden city on a singular mountain, a mountain that you lived on your entire life, and no one's managed to find this thing yet? Thankfully, the story does have a good explanation for that too. It's covered with an invisibility field, which our 3 pilots gracefully blow up to expose this legendary golden city. And it's here that Wave 3 of Exo-Force begins. The first half of 2007 gives us 7 new battle machines. So hey, let's take a closer look. Now, it's pretty common for LEGO's in-house themes to undergo some sort of overhaul once the theme reaches into its 2nd year. And that was definitely the case here for Exo-Force. But to the theme's credit, it actually does so in a way that makes sense with its story. The battle machines we see here in 2007 were not canonically created by the Exo-Force team, but were rather found as part of the ancient technology of the legendary Golden City. And because of that, they take on a bit of a different look than those original Wave 1 and Wave 2 sets. In this part of the story, primarily outlined in the online comics and also in Book 3 of the Exo-Force saga, the pilots are able to unlock battle machines by entering codes into the Golden City supercomputer. And in a bit, you'll see how those codes also tie into the playsets as well. One of the first battle machines they actually unlock in the Golden City is set number 8100, Cyclone Defender. Exo-Force pilot Rio quickly lays claim to Cyclone Defender as it reminds him a lot of his own very well-loved Uplink battle machine. This new battle machine, though, is a bit larger and more well-equipped than Uplink ever was. It's equipped with what LEGO.com would have referred to as a bladed defense shield and a variable pulse blaster. The shield is actually pretty cool. It's geared up to spin with those samurai swords on it. But I think one of the most fascinating things about this set, and all the sets in this way for that matter, are the new variations of the main cast that we get. Rio's appearance here is pretty drastically different than the first 2 waves of sets, where he swapped out his orange clothing for dark green armor with some gold printing on it. It's pretty sweet. All these gold detailings and accents really were something special and made this wave of Exo-Force stand out, not only against the other Exo-Force waves, but amongst other themes as well. Everything else on Rio is familiar though, the same hairpiece and the same double-sided head. One of the most interesting things about these Wave 3 battle machines, as opposed to the ones that came before, is that they make use of a lot more ball joints than those ratcheting Galador joints that we saw in Waves 1 and 2. And overall, I think it's a pretty positive change. The color schemes of all the mechs become quite different too. Rather than one solid color, it's more of a mix of colors, blending a primary color with white and yellow accents. And this goes for most all of the good guy Golden City mechs. They're definitely a bit messier than the 2006 sets, but they do have their own charm, and I appreciate that LEGO was able to create a unique aesthetic for these battle machines as opposed to the 2006 ones. As ever, Exo-Force is still using plenty of stickers on these models, but there is one printed piece that you'll find across each of these 7 sets, and that's a 1x2 tile with an Exo code on it. Now this code ties into the lore where these would be entered into the Golden City computer to unlock battle machines and other secrets within the city, but you could also use the code on LEGO.com to unlock a virtual copy of the set with your LEGO profile. You would be able to play with that specific battle machine in a game, and you'd also unlock downloads like desktop backgrounds and additional information on the set. I feel like such a gimmick maybe wouldn't go over as well today, but I can promise you that my brother and I were pretty obsessed with the codes. We'd even try the ones they printed in the LEGO catalog to see if they would work, and I'm pretty sure they didn't. But it was a fun little game to play. According to the lovingly maintained Exo-Force wiki, there were probably anywhere from 2 to 4 variations of a code per set. So it was possible to get different codes, which kind of surprised me. I thought they would just print 1 per set, but some have at least 4 different documented codes, which is kind of cool. It's cool to see too that this particular mech does have fingers, something that was tried in the 2006 mechs, but it becomes a lot more common here in Wave 3. But there you go, that's Cyclone Defender. Let's take a look at the bad guy equivalent small mech. So next up is 8101 Claw Crusher, the small robot battle machine. This set's construction is nearly identical to that of Cyclone Defenders. The robots too also got a bit of a color scheme swap, with their base color being black, and then these bolder neon colors being the accents. In this case, it's orange, but we'll also see lime green and yellow for two of the other sets. The robot minifigures, though, are the same from 2006. This one here is just a normal Devastator, no special dual injection color going on here. The only other time that we would have seen this specific minifigure is in Wave 2's Bridgewalker, where there were two of them manning the guns on that very epic looking battle machine. As far as weapons go here, the Claw Crusher has a titanium claw and a Gatling laser gun. Story-wise, this thing would have been mass-produced just like Sentry to attack the Golden City in swarms, overpowering the Exo-Force just in terms of sheer numbers. One thing I do like about this particular model is that the robot for once is actually kind of safe. He's covered up by this little windscreen and his nose just peeks out. I think that's pretty cool. The robot battle machine here too also does have one of those 1x2 printed Exo code tiles. And this, according to the Exo-Force wiki, is one of the sets that would have had 4 variations of that code. If I'm not mistaken, this is the only set to have a code printed on an orange tile, which is kind of cool. If it had been another yellow one, I think that would have looked kind of ridiculous. So I'm glad they went that extra step and made it look nice. So that's your Claw Crusher. Let's go on to the next one. The next battle machine is the first of 4 $15 mechs. This was another one of the first battle machines unlocked in the Golden City, and Tekashi laid claim to this one. And speaking of Tekashi, let's take a look at his costume upgrade. His is not quite as drastic of a change as Ryo's. Instead, Tekashi goes from red to dark red. Again, he's got some great gold accents, and it's worth noting that none of these minifigures have leg printing or back printing on them. So don't worry, you're not missing anything. Tekashi fits very snugly into his cockpit here, which is very well protected. The 2007 sets completely ditched the fiber optic cable and the light brick, which gave the designers a lot more wiggle room when it came to making these sets. There's more room for the minifigures and it's a lot easier to get them in there. And the whole thing is just a bit more solid because of it. While this battle machine yet again is a bit noisy in its colors, there's a lot of things I like about it. But most of all, I really enjoy the blade for which the Blade Titan is named. This thing has a really cool function in that the blade widens as you spin it. It looks proper menacing. The blades are a most interesting recolor of a Bionicle piece, and each is made with 2 plastic colors, one being a milky white transparent and the other dark red, I think. But it takes on a bit of a lighter appearance just because of the other milky white plastic it's been mixed with. There's really not much else like this out there. Maybe another Bionicle piece was colored this same way, but it's very unique, especially for system sets, and it's really cool. That combined with the really fun play function here makes this a top tier weapon. The other side just features your typical massive giant Exo-Force gun. You can see here too, and this remains true for most of the larger battle machines, that the legs use the Galador joints and then the arms make use of ball joints instead. The Galador joints give the legs just a bit more rigidity so it doesn't collapse under its own weight, and then you get the flexibility you'd really want out of the arms. I think it's a good compromise and it works perfectly for mechs of this size. One thing that I do see pop up here that I really don't like though is a 2x2 tile for armor plating. The other mechs have this too, and that's definitely a bit of a very unnecessary downgrade. It's not so offensive here in Blade Titan, where that can be covered up by these larger Technic armor panels, but in some of the other mechs, it's a little too little. Even using this weird 2x2 sloped brick thingy there would have been so much better. I really don't know why they decided to go for this thin armor plating there. Nitpicks aside though, with that really fun bladed shield, I think this does become one of the more enjoyable mechs to mess around with. I mean, this is kind of mesmerizing, and you could do some serious damage to some robots with this. The other mid-range battle machine is piloted by Hikaru. Wave 3 gives Hikaru a nice dark blue set of armor this time around, again with more golden accents, which he got gotta love. His battle machine, while just another on that long list of Hikaru's flying battle machines, actually does have some unique flair to it, especially with these winglets of sort hanging out the back. The Sky Guardian is equipped with an energy sword and a particle beam rifle. Particle beam rifle doesn't really quite sound right because it's a Zamor sphere launcher, which doesn't really read beam to me, but it's fun. So yes, this is again another bionicalization moment where we get a Zamor sphere appearing in Exo-Force, and it will appear in some of the later sets as well. I appreciate that we're staying away from the disc launchers, for now at least, and trying something a bit more new and exciting with the weapons. The Sky Guardian's melee weapon works a bit better for me, and as far as I'm aware, it is unique to this set. Like the Blade Titan, Hikaru is pretty well protected in the cockpit here, and it's easy to access him by bringing down this glass shield. One thing that always elevates an Exo-Force model for me is the use of this silver flexible tubing, which is used to great effect here in the Sky Guardian. It just bulks out those legs a little bit, makes the flying feature just a little more believable with the mechanics exposed there, and I love that organic shaping that is just so hard to accomplish with regular bricks. Now it's time to take a look at the mid-tier robot battle machines. And the first one we've got here, 8104 Shadowcrawler, is really unique. Instead of a bipedal mech, we get a three-legged spider walker of sorts. Armed with, according to Lego.com, ion cannons, a double-barrel laser cannon, a destroyer disc launcher, and some green mandibles. So yeah, this thing's kind of spooky. The spookiest thing about it though is you might have noticed that green orb in the back. There's a skeleton in there. Whoa. Whoa! Lego got dark, and this is further expanded upon in the books. Typically, these things would go around with live human captives in the back. The idea was that the humans just wouldn't want to attack a shadow crawler if it had their friend hanging out in the back. And so it made these a lot more dangerous. I'm surprised Lego went that dark with, a toy, but super creative, and I like it. The Devastator we have here is molded with some transparent neon green in his tummy, and that designates him as a Special Forces Devastator. It also just so happens to go really well with the color scheme of his vehicle. The other time we would have seen one of these Devastators was in 2006's Sonic Phantom. Unlike in Striking Venom, which was our other spider-like walker, there actually is a lot more posability with these legs. It's still hard to imagine the three legs walking around, but if you get a bit creative, you could probably figure it out. According to the story, the legs had magnetic tips, which would allow them to climb up metallic surfaces. And yeah, as mentioned earlier, this thing is pretty decked out in weapons, including the disc launcher, which makes its triumphant return here before being discontinued forever. Despite its many flaws as a projectile shooting system, these dual plastic discs are really cool. And I forgot to highlight it last time, but you can pretty seamlessly fit a bar in that opening in the middle, and the pieces don't get stuck, which is great. So there is some mock potential there with a legal connection. Again, a huge win for me is the use of that flexible tubing up to the guns. Love that stuff. There's plenty of room for a Devastator pilot to sit in the cockpit next to his lime green printed code. The Exo-Force wiki says there is at least 3 different variations of the lime green code, which would have been a unique color for this set. I think, probably. Yeah, I don't think there's any on Mobile Devastator. But yeah, when it comes to that back compartment, it's just 2 domed trans neon green pieces. They can be split apart, so you can put whoever you want in there. The skeleton, I guess, becomes a bonus minifigure here, making this the only Wave 3 set to technically include 2 minifigures. Even if the legs are a bit hard to pose, I think the idea, the concept of this one is really, really fascinating. And the fact that it's not a bipedal mech really makes it stand out in this wave, of bipedal mechs. The color scheme too is a lot more similar to that of the 2006 sets, which might make me partial to this one too. Oh, and I forgot to mention earlier, the really distinct change in the sticker detailing, especially for the robots. The electrical wiring and patterns on the stickers here are very, very two-dimensional. It's just a completely different art style, which I don't think I like. I think one of the biggest pros for me, one of the biggest appeals of Exo-Force was 2006's grittiness, which I think this simpler style just strays from a bit too much. But we can talk about that more at the end. Now, this is pretty hard to find short of like buying a sealed set, but I found one single seller in the US that had an Exo-Force Wave 3 box for sale, and that just happened to be for Shadowcrawler. And I definitely thought this was worth investing in because these boxes were works of art. They really embraced the Golden City vibe, Golden City era here of Exo-Force with super shiny, glossy boxes, and it just is really, really cool. Even on the back, the shine continues. It's pretty cool. I mean, I probably haven't seen this box since like 2007. It just came in the mail like an hour ago, so I'm kind of in awe too. But yeah, I thought this was very much worth sharing. Definitely would have made the packaging stand out back in 2007. It would stand out a lot today too. So there you go. Let's check out the other mid-size robot vehicle. And that's going to be 8105, the Iron Condor, which was used a lot, I recall, in the promo material for this wave. It does have a pretty distinctive silhouette with those haunting wings raised above it like some sort of Grim Reaper. I definitely think it's a good design. The color scheme here is yellow instead of that lime green against the black, and then some transparent red accents. Another place where you can find some transparent red accents is actually on the Devastator. You might remember this Devastator from 2006's Thunder Fury, one of the original robot battle machines. He appears here again, though. Can you imagine if they made like a transparent yellow Devastator? That would have been interesting. I think the transparent red definitely is better, but I mean, I'm always down for a new color. But here in 2023, I don't feel confident that we'll get a new color Devastator anytime soon. For weapons, the Iron Condor has a magnetic homing rocket missile, something you might be more familiar with as a spring-loaded shooter. And then on his left hand, he's got steel-bladed claws. And in addition to that, there's some cockpit-mounted lasers. Unfortunately, this mech 2 also has the flat 2x2 tile armor. But other than that, though, it does look pretty sweet. And one huge plus of this mech in particular is the ability to rotate at the waist, something that is so often forgotten in Exo-Force. I can't believe how infrequently we see that kind of rotation, which isn't that hard to implement as shown here. But yeah, this thing is pretty cool. The wings are on ball joints, so you can pose those around, and like the other mechs, the legs are made with the familiar Galador joints, so it'll hold its weight plenty fine. This mech, of course, canonically would be capable of flight, and so its direct adversary would be Hikaru's Sky Guardian. Unfortunately for Wave 3 of Exo-Force, LEGO did away with the alternate builds for each of the sets. You can still find some fun stuff at the end of the instruction booklets though, like comics, a how to draw guide for Tekashi, and a wide shot of all the other sets in the wave. While there might not be any more alternate builds, LEGO still provided instructions online for 2 combination models. One being Sky Titan, which could be made from parts using all 3 human battle machines, and the other, Iron Crusher, which can be made from parts using all 3 robot battle machines. LEGO even provided a video called The Ultimate Battle, where these 2 faced off against each other. And I'm just gonna say it, these combo models look proper ridiculous. Crazy looking as these things were though, I bet they were a lot of fun to play with.
Build the super battle machines yourself by downloading the building instructions.
Now before we get to our final large battle machine, there's 5 Polybags we should actually take a look at first. Now one of these, again the robot Polybag, probably was never even released, as there is no evidence suggesting that it ever was. But the other 4 for the main Exo-Force pilots were released at least in Europe as obscure promotional items with a Donald Duck magazine and also as Duracell tie-ins. I don't really know how it worked, but that's where they came from. The first one is 3870 Tekashi Walker. This is very similar to the Polybags we saw in 2006, just a slightly different format that I think makes it unique. This was a really easy way to get the brand new Tekashi minifigure though, which was kind of cool. For set number 3871, Hayato gets another flyer. He saw something very similar to this actually in Sentai Fortress. This time he's got like huge jet engines to hang on to. The concept is great. I love being able to get an entire mech suit out of some 30 pieces. 3872 is the set number reserved for Robo Flyer, the set that was never released. The only reason that we know this would have been a set is because you can find the instructions on lego.com. This particular polybag is really interesting because the engines are actually mounted to the Devastator's head, which is great use of the very limited parts budget the designer had. And it's kind of unfortunate this thing never hit the market because it's really fun. This would have been made for like a great stocking stuffer. Who would not be excited about this thing? But for all of these, the parts are easy to find if you wanted to create any of these for yourselves. And the instructions, even for the unreleased one, can be found on lego.com. We skip ahead a few set numbers now to 3885, which is Hikaru's little flyer. This would have been one of those Duracell promotion sort of things. There ends up being like 4 or 5 variations of this set with different packs of Duracell batteries. It's really interesting. You can see them all on bricklink.com if you're interested. Ryo's Exo Fighter falls into the same category, being another Duracell promotional with many variations of it. This is the first time Ryo actually gets one of these very small exosuits. So there you go, those are all the polybags. Now, while it doesn't have nearly as many gear items as Waves 1 and 2 did, Exo-Force Wave 3 does bring a few unique non-LEGO set items to the table, including a watch, some posters, and a stationary set. But by far the most interesting of all the Wave 3 gear items is this. An Exo-Force rocket launcher. And yeah, this thing is beat up, but it is technically sealed. It's something I just stumbled across while searching Exo in a store I was already buying parts from. And honestly, I think we need to open this and try it out.
I don't want to get it on our roof by accident. Yo, distance. I knew it. Shoot, I shouldn't have done that. Oh no.
Yeah!
Victory!
Whoa. That gives us just one last model to look at. And today I've definitely saved the best for last with the special Golden Edition Golden Guardian. All this time, Hayato has gotten the short end of the stick. In the first wave, he got one of the smallest mechs, where one of his weapons was literally just, a fist. In wave 2, he got the tiny little exosuit from Sentai Fortress. Throughout the first 3 books, he is hardly mentioned. He might not even be mentioned at all. But finally, he gets something really good. I guess he did have White Lightning, but even White Lightning felt like, a knockoff sort of battle machine. This time, he gets the big one to himself. According to Lego.com, this thing is decked out with a sniper cannon and a rocket launcher, and he's also equipped with a platinum gold alloy razor shield. In total, there were 5 of these hidden within the Golden City, but Hayato got access to the first one. When it comes to the minifigure, Hayato has probably changed the least. He's still got a base white for the torso and legs, but with, of course, some new printing on that torso. I do firmly believe that the aesthetic of Wave 1 and Wave 2 in 2006 is superior to that of the Golden City era. But this shows the potential of the different look. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Oh man, I don't even know where to start, but let's start at the base. There is a funny story right away with the feet. You'll notice 2 stickers, one on each foot, right? They are both placed upside down. The reason they are placed upside down is because the instructions tell you to place them upside down. The only way you know to place those right side up is if you reference the box when doing your stickering, which hardly anybody does. So I could probably order all of these off bricklink.com and maybe I'd get one more that was right side up. It was just very unlikely that anybody back in 2007 was putting these on the right way. And understandably so, because the instructions didn't say so. And so if you order one of these pieces and do get it upside down, don't be upset at the Bricklink seller because they probably don't realize they're supposed to be upside down. It is such an inconsequential detail at the end of the day. It's not worth worrying about, but it makes for a funny story. But I mean, look at those legs. Again, phenomenal use of that flexible tubing piece, kind of weaving in and out of the legs there. And those are heavily armored. These are not 2x2 tiles on the legs. That's some proper protection. You would think the legs would almost be too large, but I don't know, the proportions just work for me. We move up into the cockpit, which is plenty spacious yet again. This is actually one of the few instances in which we actually see some sort of idea of controls for the Exo-Force pilot. There's 2 levers mounted on the side for Hayatu to mess with. And of course, he's got another exo code on his side there. On his right arm, he has that huge golden laser cannon with a sticker that rightfully says extreme danger. It looks plenty dangerous. And there's another spring-loaded shooter there below. That was a little closer. The rifle there is primarily made of one of those huge 2x2 pillars, this time done in pearl gold, which is pretty interesting. The left arm is plenty fun too, with some pearl gold Technic armor elements with some shiny gold stickers on top. The stickers read Danger Razor Shield, so you get the idea that this thing would be pretty sharp in universe. And then up on top, attached to ball joints, you have some shoulder armor there that gives the model some extra mass, some extra height. Stylistically, it just works for me. It's a very attractive battle machine. And having so many of those gold elements really sells the idea that this came from the Golden City. Now, this particular model would have been released in March, so just a few months after all the other ones. So it was that special limited edition sort of run that we've seen from every Exo-Force wave so far. Wave 1's was Supernova, Wave 2's was Bridgewalker, Wave 3 here is the Golden Guardian. And all of those special edition sets so far have, they've been superb. And this one is no exception. I think it is the strongest of the lineup, just as pretty much Supernova was the best of Wave 1, and Bridgewalker was certainly the best battle machine of Wave 2. Sentai Fortress, though, such a great set. So yeah, that's Wave 3 of Exo-Force for you, but that's not the end of the Golden City era. There's one more wave of these sets coming in the second half of 2007, which we'll take a look at in revisiting Wave 4, which will come out eventually. While my heart will always belong to the original sets from Exo-Force, Wave 3 actually does quite a few things right. I get that LEGO feels the need to completely overhaul these themes when it goes into a new year, and that's what happened here with Exo-Force. LEGO wanted to change up the aesthetic, but I think they found a good way to do so, especially in the story. The idea of ascending higher up the mountain, that's exciting, that's interesting. There's mystery here, what secrets are hidden in the Golden City. There's a lot of potential there that I think they did a good job of exploring, especially when it came to the comics and the books. That was fun to read about, fun to get invested in this story, and that worked for me. Compare that to something like Atlantis. They go to Atlantis and all of a sudden their color scheme is yellow and red instead of lime and red. The aesthetic change made sense here, and I'm able to get behind that, and I appreciate that. They put in the work for justifying it, not just to hopefully sell more product, but they actually had a canonical reason for it. The idea of collecting the codes too, which again, while devious on LEGO's part, was actually kind of fun and creative, and it gave us printed pieces in Exo-Force. Who'd have thought it was possible? Another great thing too that we saw here for the first time is the use of ball joints, which generally are just a lot easier to work with than the ratcheting joints. But LEGO didn't use them to such an extent that it compromised the stability of these models. They still have those Galador joints in the legs so these things can stand up on their own, which is great. And I think the stability of the models overall has been drastically improved. I got plenty of comments on the first 2 revisiting videos of Exo-Force saying yeah, I had these as a kid and they fell apart all the time. I feel like that just didn't happen as much with the Wave 3 mechs. There were a lot of structural improvements made beyond the ball joints just to make sure the armor isn't going to fall off on you, which greatly appreciated. At the end of the day, I think the reason that Wave 3 just doesn't work for me quite as well as Waves 1 and 2 is just the fact that it's lost that grittiness that the original 2006 sets had. There's a lot more greebling, exposed armor. It felt like these machines were engineered quickly to fight. And this time around, it's just a little too high-end fantasy. And again, it does make sense in the story. They're just digging these out of storage from the Golden City. But I miss that. I miss that vibe that is no longer here. in this wave of Exo-Force. And yeah, maybe I'm pulling at straws there, but that's just how I feel. But I am curious to hear what you think about the Golden City era sets. Do you prefer the Golden City over the 2006 era, or do you like the older models better? Do let me know. We are officially past the halfway point in revisiting Exo-Force. There are 2 more Exo-Force waves to go, 1 more for the Golden City, and then for the Jungle wave as well. Producing these has been a blast, and it's been amazing to see the absolute outpouring of love for what I thought was just a very niche, totally forgotten theme. But I can tell that Exo-Force left an impact on a tremendous amount of people, and that's really cool to see it have this little resurgence all these years later. Anyway, that's all I've got. Have yourself a fantastic life, and I will see you next time.